Welcome to Nice and Blunt. My name is Adam Riancho, and we are live on YouTube. It's Saturday morning, and we are going to get into a Chihuahua 2 draft. It's a tournament, so that's something to keep in mind. Let's just take a look at the rules real quick. It's $25K to first, so that's the prize we're chasing. But, if you finish in the top 2 of your specific league, then you do at least get your money back. So that is also a strategy to employ. You do want to win that draft lobby that you're in. But it does become a tournament in weeks 15, 16, 17. The qualifier is weeks 1 through 14. So with that in mind, we will prep to get in the draft. But if you are watching, if you want to join me, give me a minute. I'm gonna wait just a little bit, and we'll talk about some of those preseason games that happened last night. There's not a ton of news, but I'm just gonna wait to filter in, and hopefully, if you want to join me, we will have that opportunity together. But where is the chat? There we go. Okay, I'm just getting myself situated. Max Trinko, what up? How you doing? Happy to have you here in the chat. And just give me like a couple minutes. We'll talk briefly about some of the news last night, because there were some preseason games. So far there's been 8, and a little bit of interesting results. Let's talk Green Bay and Cincinnati, because we don't know what the hell to expect from Jordan Love at the moment. And I'm very interested. So let's look at the play-by-play. It's not like they played the entire game, but it is somewhat interesting. A player that I think is very interesting, definitely to keep your eye on in Green Bay, is Luke Musgrave, the tight end, who has been getting quite a bit of good news. It seems like he's been practicing a ton, staying on the field a lot. And while they did draft both him and Tucker Kraft as rookies, it is, a little bit of a battle there. But I think Musgrave is definitely the clear front runner to have the Robert Tonyan job. Definitely get more looks, definitely more snaps in the Packers offense. But Max, you are a Packers fan, so cool. Glad if you have any insight on the new Packers team. To be honest with you, I don't really know what to think. I feel like they're gonna max out at like 6, maybe 7 wins. Feels like the most. I also think there's a chance that Jordan Love is absolute shit. And, maybe if there's a few injuries to the defense, like Jair Alexander goes down, maybe a few other offensive linemen. If Christian Watson also gets injured, maybe, just maybe, they could be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes with only like 3 wins. That's like a worst case scenario, but I really can't imagine they have a above 500 record and are in the playoffs next year. I just don't believe it. But let me know what you think in the comment section. But Dylan seemed to get quite a few looks as well. They did score a touchdown on the second drive where Jaden Reed was featured. Then Musgrave, Christian Watson got a target. Dylan for 11 yards. That makes sense. I mean, not going to push it with Aaron Jones a ton in the preseason. He got the first touch of the game, and then it feels like he didn't really get on the field that much after. But Dobbs did score a touchdown. Dobbs had a good connection with Jordan Love last year in the preseason, so maybe that's something to keep in mind. Sport Dog, we have not started the draft yet. You have not missed anything. We're just going over a few preseason stats, especially like the Packers here, because there are some teams we have no idea what to expect. And we will start the draft in just a few minutes. Hopefully you guys can join me if you'd like. Remember, we are on Underdog. If you've never joined Underdog, we're going to be entering a Chihuahua $4 entry. And if you are new, you can use my code Nice and Blunt on sign up and get up to your first $100 matched on Underdog over there. But didn't play much more than 2 series. So something to keep in mind, players that might be worth targeting would be Luke Musgrave and A.J. Dillon, I think, in the Packers offense. Those receivers are still a little bit up in the air. But let's see who else we can, any other teams that played we can talk about. The Broncos are very interesting. And it looks like Jerry Jeudy is the clear number 1 for the Broncos. He did score a touchdown, a 21-yard touchdown by Russell Wilson. And I love Jerry Jeudy. He is my boy. He has been for quite some time. I'm very excited about Jerry Jeudy. And so that's something to keep in mind. But Samaje Perine got most of the touches. It didn't really seem like they gave any work to Javonte Williams in that game. And I don't mind it. I don't really care. I don't want him to get hurt. I'm a big fan of Javonte Williams as well. So that's fine. Nothing too upsetting there. But who else can we mention? The Giants-Detroit game didn't really have much info. The Falcons-Miami game, not much to see there either. Pittsburgh-Tampa Bay, George Pickens scored a 33-yard touchdown. That was pretty solid, but the Bucs secondary, not really something that scares you too much. And then what about Washington? Sam Howell is also an interesting player. He looks like he was 9 for 12 for 77 yards and a touchdown, and that touchdown, I believe, went to Jahan Dotson. So Dotson picking up right where he left off last year. Very heavy touchdown producer, Jahan Dotson. I think is a bit more of a red zone threat than Terry McLaurin, but it doesn't look like Terry played in this game. So kind of hard to really buy into all of these. And then in Houston, Tank Dell did have quite a good game back on Thursday. He was, let me be precise with this, 5 for 65 and a touchdown, 8 targets, led the team in targets. But he is a rookie and a player I am somewhat high on. I'm going to mention to you real quick some exposures. I'll get into this in an upcoming video, but I'm a big fan of Tank Dell. Tank Dell is my number one most drafted player for the Houston Texans at 12.5%. I have been taking him in round 18, and his rapport with the quarterback C.J. Stroud, they really hit it off at the Combine. They become really good friends, and when the Texans passed on taking JSN, they traded up for Will Anderson. C.J. Stroud asked the Texans to draft Tank Dell. He really liked them, and Tank Dell is also he played for Houston, so at least from the mental standpoint of adjusting to the NFL, he didn't have to move to a new city. He is comfortable. He can just focus on football. As someone who just moved to a new city myself, there are a lot of other things to kind of adjust to when you do make that move. Maybe it's irrelevant, but I do think from a mental standpoint, it is an advantage. Just real quick, we'll talk about Nathaniel Dell. He was a excellent player for Houston last year. So maybe not, an elite conference, the American Conference, but 1,300 plus yards in back-to-back seasons, 12 touchdowns 2 years ago, 17 touchdowns last year. He is undersized, though. He comes in at 5'10", 155 here on Sports Reference. He's shorter than that. He is not 5'10". He's like maybe 5'6". Let's check out his player profiler page. Tank. Now we're going to go Nathaniel Dell. He'll be the last player I mention before we get into a draft. If you do want to join me, we will get into that in just a minute. He's 5'8", 165, according to Player Profiler. Best comp would be Isaiah McKenzie. He was drafted in the early 3rd round. And, he doesn't have, elite speed according to this page, but he was a heavy producer for Houston. And maybe Nico Collins is really not elite. I'm not a believer in Nico Collins. Robert Woods, not a player I'm, super, super high on. And then John Mechie is coming off of leukemia. There's a chance that there's the wide receiver 1 role available in this offense. It's possibly going to go to Tank Dell. He's going in the 18th round, and a player to keep in mind. But we will head over to Underdog now. We will get into the lobby. And remember, we are joining the Chihuahua number 2, and there is a bit of a delay. So if you want to hit the button now, I'm going to wait 1, 2, 3, 5 seconds, and I'll hit it now. And hopefully there's 5 spots left in this draft. If you'd like to join, you can join. And we can draft together. That'd be pretty dope if the people watching would like to join this draft. But here it is. It's full. It's ready to go. Let me know if you are in the lobby. If you're not, that's totally fine. But Gonna be fun. Ooh, looks like I got the 101. Hell yes. Hell yes. Let's get ourselves situated here. Looks like I need to expand this a little bit. I think if you do get the luxury of the first overall pick on Underdog, you have to go Justin Jefferson. It's almost impossible that you get Justin Jefferson in any other scenario. So I don't see the point in wasting that pick and going with someone else. Maybe you believe in some players more. Like if Joe Burrow wasn't injured, I guess you could make a case for Jamar Chase, but I think it's just the safest bet for sure to go Justin Jefferson. If Cooper Kupp can play a full season with Matthew Stafford, then maybe he'll be the number one player as well. But Justin Jefferson is just so elite. Such guaranteed stats. I mean, 1,800 yards last season, 1,600 the year prior. If those touchdowns can go up, he could be even better this season. So I'm definitely going Justin Jefferson. And we are taking what we can get, happily going with Justin Jefferson. Looks like in the poll, 100% of the responders so far believe the Jets have the best chance to go from worst to first. I'm a believer in the Jets. I don't think they're going to be bad, but I find it hard to believe they're going to win that division. If Tua can stay healthy, I think the Dolphins could have the best shot to unseed the Bills, but the Bills are definitely the front runners. I think the Browns are kind of interesting. I don't know if they're going to win the division, but if Joe Burrow somehow misses like 5-6 weeks, that could definitely happen. The Ravens, if they can stay healthy, they would definitely be in the front running as well. But the Steelers are also really, really good. I think they will be better than last year. They finished 9-2, or no, 7-2. Excuse me. They finished 9-8 on a 7-2 run to close out the season, and it's going to be a tough battle for the Browns. So it's mainly because of competition, but I do think the Browns will be better. Could make it to the playoffs. The easiest division that's up for grabs will be the NFC South. So I think the Falcons have the best chance to go from worst to first. That's just my opinion, but it's mainly because that division's completely up for grabs. I don't think they will finish first. I actually think the Panthers are going to make a very solid push. Panthers are really interesting to me. If not, it would be the Saints, most likely. The Buccaneers have no shot. They're going from worst to first. That's a guarantee. I also think it's really likely that the quarterback situation in Tampa, not going to be good, and I could easily see them trading for Trey Lance midseason. I would love to see a Trey Lance for Mike Evans trade. I would love to see Evans on the Niners. The Niners, if they have like an injury to Debo or CMC or Kittle goes down hypothetically, they're just building an all-star team. So if the Buccaneers are interested, they might as well give Trey Lance an opportunity to play somewhere else, and hopefully he can, be a starting quarterback. I would like to see Trey Lance succeed. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen in San Francisco. It's definitely Purdy's job, and it looks like all reports are that Darnold is the front runner for the number 2 quarterback in the 49ers offense. But let's just take a look at this draft board. We have Jefferson, CMC, Jamar, Tyreek, Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce. Nothing strange there. Bijan goes a little bit early. So does Garrett Wilson. A little bit of a reach on Garrett Wilson. But it is a tournament. You want a unique build. Then Stephon Diggs, Eckler, Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, and A.J. Brown. That's a good combo at 12. CeeDee and A.J. Not a common selection there. But then Chubb, Barkley, Adams, Waddle, Olave, Pollard, Henry, Devontae Smith. Other than Garrett Wilson at 8, this is a pretty typical first 2 rounds in terms of ADP. So we'll see what happens here, but Hurts goes off the board. That's a bit unfortunate. I don't like Taylor. I'm really not a big believer in Taylor. I'm just going to take the player that I really believe in, and we want more of a unique build. So while this is a bit of a reach in the ADP, I think Breece Hall is going to be really good, and I'm going to take my boy. And that's not a typical combo to go Justin Jefferson, Breece Hall, but the situation with Burrow does kind of scare me a little bit, but hard to find wide receivers that have similar value moving forward. So we're just going to go T. Higgins. Yeah, I'm going to take T. Higgins. I'm comfortable with that. Ridley, I've taken so much later in round 3. I don't love the ADP rise. There is still some risk with Ridley. He does have the potential to finish as a top 5 wide receiver. That is definitely possible. But he has been off the field for a year and a half. And while it's not like he was injured or anything, he was just suspended. I don't know. I'm just so accustomed to taking Ridley later in the 3rd round. It feels a little bit odd to grab him at the 2-3 turn. And Higgins is just so much more reliable. I'm not too worried about Burrow. It also opens up the door for us to have the Joe Burrow stack because Team 3 that took Jamar went with Mahomes, so it's very unlikely they take Burrow at the 4-5 turn, at least in round 4, and that means he's very likely going to fall to us to pick 48, 49. I would not be upset at that at all. Burrow may miss a game or two, but once he's back on the field, he should be fine. That calf strain isn't too concerning. He also doesn't need to practice in the offseason, in the preseason, in order to be good. I have relative confidence that Burrow's going to be a solid pick. But Team 2 going heavy RB to start off this draft. Interesting strategy. CMC, Jalen Hurts, Ramondre. That's an interesting strategy. Can't say I love Ramondre at this value either. I took Breece Hall over him, so that's my perspective there. Jamar Chase, Patrick Mahomes, Calvin Ridley. In this format, you got to start 3 wide receivers. So, I mean, similar to me, like taking 2 receivers before you finish your 3rd round. But then Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, Jonathan Taylor. Decent, not bad. Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen. Pretty balanced start there. That's the problem with going Travis Kelce, though. You get kind of stuck with more of a tier break at wide receiver. And this guy went Tony Pollard at round 2. So Metcalf is the wide receiver 1. I think Metcalf is just overrated in the 3rd round. I really believe in JSN. Lockett's there too. And Metcalf is a bit of a boom-bust option. In best ball, it's not bad. But I don't know. I just worry that he's not going to have as big of a target share this year. And because you can get the other Seahawks wide receivers later, I very rarely take Metcalf. I'm just not a big believer. I feel like that's kind of on brand for me. I've been opposed to endorsing Metcalf for the last couple of years on this channel. I've always preferred Lockett. And this year, I much more prefer JSN. But Bijan, Olave, Gibbs. Okay, that's not too bad. Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Lamar Jackson. Okay. This guy goes triple wide receiver. I think if you pass on running back in the first 3 rounds, it's hard to get one that you like really, really trust starting in round 4. And he also passes on receiver again. So this guy's going with a 0 RB build. In a tournament, it's not that bad. You know, you want kind of a unique setting. But I think once you have 4, you do need to start moving off of wide receiver. If this guy takes 6, 7 receivers in the first 9 rounds, could be a little bit rough for them. Not my favorite strategy, but you know, kind of a daunting core at wide receiver. Diggs, Adams, Debo, and Christian Watson. Definitely some elite upside there. But this guy goes Eckler, Saquon, Amari, Keenan. Not bad. I've mentioned I don't love Keenan in the 3rd, but in the 4th, that's fine. I prefer Mike Williams, though. That's just my preference. I also think Quentin Johnston might be more valuable than Keenan this year. Maybe I'm wrong, but Keenan does scare me in the top 40. Amon-Ra, Nick Chubb, Jerry Jeudy, Joe Mixon. Not bad at all. CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Josh Jacobs, Mark Andrews. Andrews falling considerably. That's interesting. Rarely do we see Andrews fall to the 4th round. And I think that's a little bit more justified. I don't like taking Andrews in the early to mid-3rd. I think that's a little bit too pricey. I don't have him as a top 3 tight end. He's like barely inside my top 4. And he's really touchdown dependent with the lowered target share this season. Little bit worried about Andrews. But we're probably going to target Joe Burrow. That would make a lot of sense. The stack is definitely valuable. We already have Hall, so we're probably not going to go wide receiver. This guy goes Hawkinson. Okay. So we definitely want the Burrow stack. We have T. Higgins, so that's a good thing to target. I'm not in love with Hopkins. I am honestly quite worried about Hopkins. But he has fallen to us a few picks. I just don't believe in Tannehill, to be honest with you. He's also getting up there in age. I'm more a believer in Brandon Ayuk. I'm going to go with my gut. I prefer Brandon Ayuk over DeAndre Hopkins. That's just how I feel. I think Ayuk and Debo are completely identical in terms of value. There might be a few more spike weeks with Debo, but last year, when you go into Debo's stats, they were concerning, and then he's also a big injury risk as well. Like, let's just take a look at Debo's game log. Aside from the game against the Rams, where he went 6 of 7 for 115 and a touchdown, and then the game there was one other game where he went off, but only 2 touchdowns last year. That's not good. He did have 3 rushing touchdowns, so that's not bad. But really limited production from a fantasy points per game, like a half PPR standpoint. He was overwhelmingly under 12.5 points the majority of the season, like 14 yards receiving, 52 rushing, and a touchdown. You don't get those PPR points, so that's a bummer. 44 yards receiving, 73. There's that big boom game in week 4, but then 20 yards receiving, 79, 42. Then a missed game with injury, 24, 57, 43, 58, 43. You need the rushing upside to hit, and with Christian McCaffrey in the fold this year, I don't think they're going to lean on Debo unless they really have to. Like, he's a good weapon, good solid option, but there's just not that many elite games from Debo. There were 2 straight games where he had back-to-back double touchdown games, but otherwise, I mean, the yards were really minimal. I don't love Debo at all, whereas if we look at Ayuk was really starting to develop a very solid rapport with Brock Purdy. He was really starting to come into his stride starting in week 6, and this was technically with Jimmy Garoppolo, but 11 targets, 6, 7, 4, 8, 9, 3, 4, 7, 12. And the receiving numbers were extremely consistent. 83 yards and 2 touchdowns, 82 yards, 81 yards and a touchdown, 84 yards, 20 but 2 touchdowns, 65 yards, 46. So a little bit diminished, but then performed really well in the fantasy playoffs, 81 yards, 101 and a touchdown. He is, I think, safer of a bet. He played the entire season as well, and I think that the defense kind of forgets about him a little bit. They really focus on Kittle and Debo, and then obviously McCaffrey at such a high level. If anyone's going to slip past the defense because they have easier coverage, it's Ayuk. And from a per-game standpoint, Ayuk and Debo were actually really, really close, almost identical in terms of production on a per-game basis. So I trust Ayuk more. I think he has less injury risk, and to get him 16 picks later than Debo, I think is much better value. So that's just my gut. I am more of a believer in Ayuk. This also opens the door for a potential Brock Purdy stack. Kittle is not going to fall to us, so that's not an option. But I do love the value on Ayuk. In round 5, I think he's an excellent, excellent pick. So that's why I took him. But following our Ayuk selection, we saw Christian Kirk, Aaron Jones, Herbert, Kenneth Walker, Justin Fields, Madison, JSN, Lockett, DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins really fell. Wow. Pick 58, an ADP of 46. And it wasn't just me that agreed that Hopkins is a little overvalued in that Tennessee offense. But then Marquise Brown, Deontay Johnson, Trevor Lawrence, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, George Kittle, J.K. Dobbins, Pickens, Big reach on Pickens. Wow. That is very high. We've seen Pickens normally go in round 7. So for him to go at 66, people are starting to buy the hype. I don't blame him. I think from a touchdown perspective, especially on underdog, he's more valuable than Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's targets should creep back this year. Pickens should go up. And Pickens scored 4 touchdowns last year. That should increase, whereas Deontay Johnson scored 0. I'm a little bit worried about the upside with Deontay Johnson and his touchdown production. But looks like we're going to be on the clock pretty soon. We're at the turn, so planning for future, picks is kind of irrelevant. And looks like we're on the clock. And Akers has fallen to us. 6 picks. So I might go with Akers from a value standpoint. That's not bad. We do want a unique type of build here. So Akers is pretty interesting. I'm definitely going to take Akers. I'm tempted to go with Dameon Pierce because the running backs that are going to be available back in the next round are really at a much different level. I don't love it, but it's not like we really need receiver. Do we go with Darren Waller? No, I think I'm just going to go with Dameon Pierce. I think now that we have 3 RB1s, we can probably move off the position. There is a little bit of concern that Breece Hall doesn't play a full season. If they do add Dalvin Cook, that could be a problem. And having a good running back core, I think, is a little bit more valuable than taking tight end right now. If we're wrong about tight end, if they get hurt, then that's a real big bummer. And watch. Maybe I'm going to be wrong, but I expect a ton of running backs to go off the board in the next 2 rounds, and the quality of player that we can get at the 8-9 turn at the RB position is just so much different, so much more diminished than who we are getting here in terms of Cam Akers and Dameon Pierce. And remember, this is a tournament, so you want a unique roster. The fact that Akers and Dameon Pierce go in the middle of the 6th round, to get both of them on the same roster is a little bit more rare. So I do find that valuable in this tournament setting. Our wide receivers are really good, so that's not like the end of the world. I did kind of think about Quentin Johnston briefly, but grabbing Akers and Pierce, I think, is a solid bet. Not something I'm worried about. They're definitely the clear RB1s in their offense. I also don't have a ton of them, so also want to increase my exposure to them. We did run through my entire exposure, and I have both of these players under 8%, so I'm happy to take them. I have so many teams with Montgomery, so many teams with Javonte. Wasn't going to reach on them. It was really just a matter of, did I want Waller? Did I want a tight end? But we were getting the best value on running backs, so that's where we went. That was the selection. But then we see Zay Flowers, Dallas Goedert, Darren Waller, Montgomery, Connor, Javonte go off the board. So this run on running back that I mentioned has started, and it's really not going to be anywhere near the same value when we come back around. Like, our next pick is numbers 96, 97. And we're looking at Gibson, A.J. Dillon, Rashad Penny. Maybe Dillon's okay, but not anything similar to what we're getting with Akers and Pierce. But we're probably going to focus on tight end and receiver a little bit later on. Receiver's always a position you got to focus on, so hopefully there's some good value, but it does kind of drop off a cliff following Quentin Johnston. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. One thing that's kind of a bummer about being at the turn is you have such a long time to wait, but could be worse. I am excited about Damian Pierce's potential, though. Like, I was a little bit down on him earlier in the offseason. I kind of shit on him in my anti-mock draft. Not a player I take a lot. But when you look closer at his game log, like, the rushing stats were legit. I mean, true workhorse. Starting in week 3, 20 for 80, 14 for 131, 26 for 99, 20 for 92, 27 for 139, 17 for 94. Efficient as well. Like, not a really good team, not a really good offense, but definitely the guy. And there are some like big games when he has a good matchup, like against the Chargers. He can bust it for a really big pickup. And then he's also legit in the passing game, like 6 targets, 5 targets, 4, 5, 3, 3, 6, 3. He did get injured following week 14, but that can happen to anyone. Nothing that I'm too scared about. Only 5 total touchdowns last season in 13 games. If that increases to like 10, then he's absolutely going to return this value. And I'm going to be happy that I don't need to focus on running back too much moving forward. I like our start with Breece Hall, Cam Akers, and Dameon Pierce. Gotta pray, though, that the Jets don't add Dalvin Cook. That's one thing that's really, really critical for Breece Hall's value. It will open the door for him to have, like, yes, a slightly diminished workload, but he won't get injured. It's going to be much less likely that he gets hurt. He is coming off an ACL injury, and that is important. So we'll see what happens. But this guy goes Jamison Williams. That is a big mistake in my opinion. Now that Tim Patrick is injured, KJ Hamler probably not going to play much this season. Cortland Sutton has more value. He is a wide receiver 2 at the end of the day. And while I definitely prefer Jerry Jeudy, there's a massive gap between his ADP and Sutton. So I'm probably going to go Cortland Sutton here. And then we'll consider running back. Tony is expected to play week 1. So, fuck it. I'm going to go Tony. I know we're just taking the best ADP value, but both of these guys have fallen a little bit. And wide receiver is really going to dry up once they're off the board. I do not believe in Michael Thomas at all. Bateman scares me. The fact that they added not only Odell Beckham, but also drafted Zay Flowers really worries me. The two of them have had a very good camp, and Bateman only just recently got activated off the PUP list. So I worry about him. Only 3 touchdowns in his career. Not a big red zone threat. I worry about Bateman a lot. I do not like taking Bateman at all. So maybe A.J. Dillon would have been a solid pick. Maybe tight end would have also been a decent strategy as well. But we do need to make sure we have a solid wide receiver platoon in this underdog format. Starting 3 of them per week is a position you can't forget about. So our roster so far is pretty solid. We have Joe Burrow stacked with T. Higgins. We also have Justin Jefferson at pick 1. Brandon Ayuk, our wide receiver 3. And then Cortland Sutton, Kadarius Toney, definitely some potential for big spike weeks as our wide receivers 4 and 5. So I like that core at wide receiver quite a bit. We're not going to be forced to hammer that position. We can really focus on value at tight end moving forward. And then we also have Breece Hall, Cam Akers, Dameon Pierce. Kind of a unique build for sure. Most of the people that get Breece Hall would get him in the middle to late round 3. And unless he's falling to them at the 3-4 turn, there's nobody that's getting Akers and Pierce back-to-back as well. Those players do not fall to you if you are in the middle of the round. So this is a combo of the 3 that is unlikely to be heavily repeated in most tournament formats, and the unique roster is definitely something you want to kind of prioritize in the tournament. I mean, it's such a big prize pool. There's over 70,000 entrants. You want to stand out from the crowd a little bit. So I feel good about this team. It's just a matter of how many games does Joe Burrow miss. I think quarterback might be something that we need to focus on a little bit in the next round. What was unfortunate is we did get sniped on Jordan Addison in the 6th round at pick 71. This guy does have Jalen Hurts, so maybe he doesn't hammer quarterback too much, but that's a very high likelihood that we get sniped on Kirk Cousins. He also has TJ Hawkinson. I would like to have the Jefferson Kirk Cousins stack. That's very safe as an investment, but he only has one. No, he has 2 running backs. Never mind. That's probably what's going to happen. We're probably going to get sniped on Kirk Cousins if he is available to us at the turn. A bit of a bummer. Bit of a bummer for sure. But maybe it doesn't happen. Fingers crossed that it doesn't. But speaking of Tony, if he can stay healthy, then I do think he's very valuable here around pick 100. He used to be going like 40 picks earlier, and that was really overpriced, hard to really bet on. But all the reports before his injury was that he was going to be their clear wide receiver 1. They really like him in Kansas City, and if he's going to be healthy week 1, if he's going to be healthy the majority of the season, he doesn't need a lot of touches to have very, very productive games. Sky Moore has officially overtaken him in the ADP, but if you're telling me that Kadarius Toney is just as healthy week 1 as Sky Moore, I think I prefer the upside a little bit more with Toney, to be completely honest with you. And this is underdogs, so that's what you want to chase. Moore has the safer floor, that is for sure, but he has less experience in the NFL, and he's only a second-year receiver, and they drafted many more. I'm a little bit worried that, they spread around a ton, and both players are more touchdown dependent. I think Toney might be a little bit more valuable in the red zone. That's just my gut. That's my instinct. That's just my opinion. But Cousins did not go to team 2. He got sniped well before this. So they go Jerick McKinnon. I do not want Damian Harris. I think we're probably going to go with a quarterback. And then we're probably going to take Greg Dulcich. Yeah, I'm going to take Dulcich because we need tight end. We can't forget about that too much. And then I do think straight up, I think Geno Smith, just from last year, he scored 315 points. Daniel Jones scored 294. You're getting more points with Geno Smith from that perspective. There's way better weapons in the passing game for Geno Smith. And with the injuries in the preseason to the running backs, I think they're going to lean on the pass a little bit more. The Seahawks are very underrated. I think they could actually be a sneaky Super Bowl team this year. They have annihilated the draft. They've been amazing at drafting the last 2 years, and the rookies that they brought in really going to help the passing game. I love JSN, and then Zach Charbonnet, very good pass catcher as well. Some insurance for Kenneth Walker. He appears to be healthy, so this team's going to be very efficient, very effective, and as long as Geno can maintain what he did last year, I think he's pretty solid. He also offers some rushing value as well. So given the slight concern with Joe Burrow, now we have a very solid quarterback 2, who I have ranked inside my top 12, actually. I think the floor with Geno is very, very safe, and I'm very comfortable taking him here. He fell to us about 7 picks, so we're not going to get a quarterback with similar upside moving forward. Last year he was a top 10 quarterback. I think that could absolutely repeat, but the fact that they upgraded their wide receiver core heavily with JSN is a big reason to trust Geno Smith. So I'm happy with him. Don't hate it at all. But Dulcich is a player I'm not afraid to reach on. I think he could easily finish as a top 10 tight end. And we also made an investment with Cortland Sutton into this offense. So it's good to have some correlation because we haven't really been stacking very much. But take a look at this game log from a rookie tight end. Rookie tight ends normally don't produce, but he scored a touchdown in week 1. 44 receiving yards is pretty legit. So that's already 10-plus points in his first game. in the NFL from a fantasy perspective. Then 6 for 51, very high usage. Then 4 for 87, that's pretty solid. 1 for 11, I mean, tight ends are going to have some bad games. That's whatever, but still 4 targets, not bad. Then 4 for 30, I think that's his floor on a weekly basis. Like 5 fantasy points is very, very solid. Then 2 for 11, whatever, but then 6 for 85, 3 for 42, another 1 for 11 game, but then 4 for 39 and a touchdown in his final game of the season. He did miss the last 2 weeks with another injury. So injury concern, a little bit high, and a little worried about that, but he's actually had some really good reviews from Sean Payton. Sean Payton has raved about Dulcich, raved about Judy, and given the injuries to that receiving core, similar logic to Cortland Sutton, there's just more volume to go around. So we've seen Sean Payton utilize the tight end position heavily. We saw really good chemistry between Dulcich and Wilson last year. You know Russell Wilson likes to target the tight end position, especially in the red zone. I think Dulcich is very, very safe, and we've passed on tight end up to this point. Not afraid to take him at the turn. He's going in round 11, so to reach on him 6, 7 spots, not afraid to do it. It's definitely fair value. Not something I'm opposed to at all. Dulcich is definitely a tight end that I've been targeting, have drafted a ton of this season. So I like him. We're going to be on the clock in a few picks. And players to target. Our running back position isn't bad, but it seems like they're going off the board at a high rate. Algier would have been a guy we would have liked to have, but it's not that bad. Van Jefferson is interesting. He might fall a little bit to us. I don't think we're going to go Marvin Mims because we've had already 2 Denver receivers already on this team. Not the end of the world. If we don't get sniped, I'd like to go Van Jefferson, but we do need to be mindful of running back. We have to reach 11 spots to take running back, so never mind. I'm not going to go running back here at all. We're not going to go quarterback either. We're definitely going with wide receiver and tight end. At least that's who we're considering. But I like Van Jefferson. Very high spike weeks for him. He's the deep threat in this offense, and he could catch an 80-yard touchdown any given week. I mean, he put up 143 fantasy points 2 years ago, and he gets Matthew Stafford back at quarterback. So we're going to go Van Jefferson. And then I'm also going to double down on the Chiefs receiving core. If Tony has a bad game, it might be because MVS has a good game himself. So we're going to go with Van Jefferson and MVS. And at this point, we have 7 receivers. So we might take one more. It's good to have at least 7, but 8 is usually the sweet spot for me. We had pretty good options early on, so I'm not going to go with 9. But we can probably move off of wide receiver moving forward. I feel pretty confident about Van Jefferson and MVS filling out our receiver core. It's pretty good. I feel very comfortable with JJ, T. Higgins, Ayuk as our main core, our top 3. And then we really only need like one of these guys to show up in any given game. Sutton should have some decent spike weeks. If he gets in the end zone, he will definitely produce. Tony could put up 20 points. He could also put up 3 points. He's a very boom-bust player, kind of like Mike Williams a little bit, but going way, way later. And if he stays healthy, he's definitely going to be a solid value for us. And then Jefferson, very big spike weeks for him. He's the deep threat, as we mentioned. So is MVS. We want some boom-bust options on our team. I feel good about this receiving core. Let me know what you think in the comment section. But then just a reminder, our quarterbacks, we got Joe Burrow, Geno Smith. Geno fell about 7 spots to us, so that's pretty good value. Our running backs are Breece Hall, Cam Akers, Dameon Pierce. So we haven't been hammering that position too much, but that was kind of the luxury of double tapping the RB position at the 6-7 turn. We have 3 clear RB1s that I think will all finish as at least top 24 running backs. And remember, we're in a 12-team league, so you really only need 2 top 25 guys to compete. If these guys can stay healthy, then it's going to be really, really safe from a running back perspective. But we do have 2 of them that have the same bye week, so that is one thing to keep in mind. in this tournament setting, every point is valuable. So while I normally don't give a shit about the bye week position, like it's really not something that I'm like usually counting on, we are going to need one of these backup running backs to fill in week 7. So we got to make sure that both of them don't have a week 7 bye. That's the only thing I'm going to mention. Like I do want to avoid a bagel at the running back position. That's kind of important. But running back and tight end is mainly the focus here. We only have one tight end so far in Dulcich. And while that's not the end of the world, we definitely need 3 with this build because we waited so long to take our first tight end. And I think we don't need quarterback anymore. Burrow and Geno, very high floors, very high upside. I think it's really just a focus on running back, tight end. We might grab one more receiver because let's see, we're in round 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We have 5 picks left. So we're grabbing 2 more running backs, 2 more tight ends, and 1 more receiver. That is the plan. That is the plan for the rest of this draft. Your roster construction, very important, especially in a tournament. Usually I kind of like to have an extra value at quarterback, but we went with Burrow early and Geno in round 10. Probably not really that important to grab a third. So that's my logic there. I'm going to focus on every position but quarterback the rest of the way. But very big run on receiver following our pick. Thielen, Gallup, Hyatt. Hyatt going at 148. I mean, I know he's fast, but damn, that is a pricey investment. Wow. I can't say I'm a big endorser in that. They have Waller. That's a pretty good stack with Daniel Jones. Hyatt has some upside, but could also really, really bust. You can get him for way cheaper value later on. Excuse me. So I don't like that reach. But Alec Pierce, does this team have Anthony Richardson? They do. That's a pretty good set. They also have Pittman. Not bad. They did not get Taylor, though. Little bit worried about it, but that's a pretty good stack, pretty good plan. This team has Justin Fields. They went Cole Kmet, not bad. Marvin Mims, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Deontay Foreman, Raheem Mostert. Wow, this team went 4 straight running backs. Interesting strategy. Laporta and Purdy, DJ Chark, Derek Carr, Kenneth Murray, Kyler Murray, and Gerald Everett, Jordan Love, Curtis Samuel. Okay. Not too bad. Let's take a look at running back. Okay. We do have Joe Burrow, so if Irv Smith is not sniped on this pick, that is definitely a target for us. Please do not take him, Furious Queso. Thank you. That is definitely our selection. We need another target in the Cincinnati Bengals offense. We already have T. Higgins. So I'm going to go with Irv Smith. But when you're at the turn, you want to utilize your clock. You know, you don't want that second pick to sneak up on you. So make sure you use the full 30 seconds. Yes, give us Irv Smith. Zeke should sign somewhere, should have good value, but I'm a little bit worried about it. Yeah, I don't want to reach too much. We're going to go with Zeke. I'm taking him a ton. Give me Ezekiel Elliott. I do think the Bengals are actually a very underrated option for him to sign in. He did play for Ohio State, so maybe he wants to chase a ring. And given the Joe Burrow injury, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they add another running back. Behind Joe Mixon, they only have Chase Brown. Travion Williams went down with injury. I mentioned this in my most recent video breaking down my running back exposure, but I've been taking Zeke a lot. And if you're telling me he signs with the Patriots, if you're telling me he signs in Dallas, if you're telling me he signs in Miami, in Cincinnati, Cincinnati's probably the highest upside value for him. He would absolutely vault up at least 4 rounds to like probably 120, 130, somewhere in around 11. I think he'd be going in the same vein as Jamal Williams, Tank Bigsby, because he is a monster when it comes to pass protection and short yardage situations. So that's definitely the case. That's definitely his role. And I trust Zeke to outperform this ADP moving forward. We don't want Devin Singletary because we already have Dameon Pierce. We don't want the handcuff in a tournament-style setting. Like, you're just hedging your bet. That's really not the way to go. You want to make the bet that Dameon Pierce plays a full season and really supplants Devin Singletary, makes him irrelevant. That's the way the bet on him works out in a tournament. You don't want the backup to a guy you've drafted earlier. So going with Zeke, hoping that works out. He should sign pretty soon. There's just no real need for him to participate in training camp. He'll be fine. So I like Zeke around pick 170 for sure. Could have gone Tyjae Spears, but I think because we avoided running back a little bit more, I'm reluctant to take like such a handcuff type of option. Like, if Henry does play a full season, then Spears isn't going to get like any fucking work. So that's very boom bust type of a pick. And I do, if I already had a fourth running back, I'd probably have gone with Spears because as your RB5, it's more of like a strictly ceiling type of pick. But as our RB4, we want a little bit more of a floor. That's why I went with Ezekiel Elliott. But following our Zeke pick, they go Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, I'm starting to buy into. I'm a little bit worried about Dobbs, to be completely honest with you. I think Reed has much better value, looking like the slot receiver in Green Bay. But then Devin Singletary, Tyjae Spears. Spears, you know I love. Really feel confident in Spears' value and upside, especially in tournaments. So would have liked to take him, but already mentioned the logic there. Then Dawson Knox. Maybe Dalton Kincaid is legit, but I think Knox has good value. Going this late, I do think he's going to be on the field quite a bit. They pay him like $14 million per season with a rookie tight end. Opposite him, I don't think he's going to disappear, that's for sure. But then Isaiah Hodgins, Kenny Pickett, Jeff Wilson, Jerome Ford, Bryce Young, Justin Ross, Gus Edwards, John Mechie, Hunter Renfrow, Juwan Johnson, Sam Howell. So quarterback really falling off a cliff for people to go Sam Howell in round 16. Not a firm believer that he plays a full season. I do think Jacoby Brissett might get some starts because I have no confidence in the Commanders this year. I think if anything, they're better off tanking and trying to get Caleb Williams or Drake May. That's just my opinion. But Tyler Conklin goes. So, yeah, compared to Irv Smith, we got some good value at tight end. That is for sure. We mentioned Luke Musgrave at the top of the video, so that might be our third tight end that we take. But we do need a fifth running back. And I have a feeling that Las Vegas is a little bit worried about Josh Jacobs because they just signed Damian Williams, former Super Bowl, nearly MVP, former running back with some high upside. He's more of a pass catcher, though. Zamir White does not catch passes. So if they do need to rely on Zamir White, then they are going to need a third down back because, what's his name? Amir Abdullah and Brandon Bolden are not guys that I would really trust. But Zamir White goes off the board. That's unfortunate. Would have liked to have Zamir White. I might go Chase Brown because we have Joe Burrow. If Zeke goes to Cincinnati, then that would be a real big bummer. But if anything were to happen to Joe Mixon, then Chase Brown would really vault into a massive workload. And looks like he struggled in his debut, so that's not ideal. 8 for 12. Cut all 3 of his passes, though, for 33 yards. So he is going to definitely get some work in the passing game. Yeah, we went Luke Musgrave. We timed out. Kareem Hunt looking like he's going to get a contract, but I don't love it. I'm going to go Chase Brown because I want the correlation with Joe Burrow. And we've seen Samaje Perine put up 20-plus fantasy points in the past. Mixon is not the youngest player, so there is some potential that he does go down. If Zeke signs in Cincinnati, then this is a bit of a bummer because we have both Bengals running backs. But it's a tournament. We are hoping for the best, and we have the correlation with Burrow and Chase Brown. If Mixon goes down, then that is what it is. I mentioned trying not to quadruple up on the Week 7 bye, but whatever, it's fine. If Zeke goes to a team with a Week 7 bye, then we will get a bagel in one of our running back spots. But that's not the end of the world. I don't really care that much. But our tight ends, I'm happy to have Luke Musgrave. He's definitely a player I think will start moving up the board as this offseason, the preseason continues, and it looks like he has the clear tight end 1 role in the Packers offense. That should be valuable, especially if they put a lot of defensive attention on Christian Watson. Almost forgot his name. But we mentioned we're going to need one more wide receiver with this draft, with this build. So that's going to be the target. And we're going to go with someone that is not drafted a lot. And I'm going to mention these 2 rookies for the Bengals. Charlie Jones, drafted in round 4, and Andre Iosivas, drafted in round 7 for the Bengals. Tyler Boyd is in a contract season. So is T. Higgins. And I can't imagine either of them return to this team next season. So because we have Joe Burrow, we're going to be looking for a stack. We want a very unique option. And in round 18, we're not really expecting this player to contribute very much. So I'm going to go with Charlie Jones. I think there's some high draft capital with him. Let's take a look at his player profiler page real quick. You know that Joe Burrow can make anyone valuable. He's 5'11 and 175, runs a 4.43 40. His best comp is Devontae Smith. So while no, he is not Devontae Smith, he is going to be 25 this season, drafted in round 4. Iosivas, much later draft capital. And let's take a look at his stats. 110 receptions last year in 14 games for 1,361 yards, 12 receiving touchdowns. Charlie Jones has some legit potential. He has transferred a lot, originally in Buffalo his freshman year, then went to Iowa, then went to Purdue. So a bit of upgrades in terms of competition. And, last year he was a monster workhorse, big target hog for the University of Purdue. So I think that especially at the end of the season, as Boyd may get injured, hopefully Higgins stays healthy because we do have Higgins on this roster. Even if that doesn't happen, they're going to try and see what they have in Charlie Jones, because next year I think he's going to need to be much more of a contributor. So we are looking for those weeks 15, 16, 17 upside, and the rookies are going to start to shine a little bit more at the end of the season. So Charlie Jones is going to be my pick. I can't really imagine we get sniped. That'd be very unlikely. If we do, we'll pivot to someone else. But Mark Yosko, rate this trade, 10-team dynasty San Francisco. I believe that's what you mean by SF. But my team is super bad, but I have Allen and Fields. I traded Fields for Waddle and Josh Jacobs. Very interesting. Is it a full PPR? Is it a half PPR? Please let me know the scoring setting real quick. But if you already have Josh Allen, you definitely don't need Justin Fields. And if you need help in terms of depth, then I definitely love the Waddle selection. Jacobs kind of concerns me from a dynasty standpoint. He is pretty young, so that's not really a huge concern. I don't hate the trade. I mean, they both have much higher ADPs than Justin Fields, but Fields could very easily lose his job if he doesn't play well. I mean, they did have the number 1 overall pick, and they didn't take Bryce Young or whatchamacallit. Oh, Superflex. That's what you mean. Okay, yeah, that makes way more sense. SF. Duh. Okay, so Fields does have very solid value in Superflex, but if it's full PPR, I love the Waddle acquisition. On a scale of 1 to 10, no, I'll give it like a real grade. I would give it like a B. I don't hate it. But if you're telling me that your team is super bad, I imagine you don't have much depth. So it's really important that you get more players. The Josh Jacobs holdout, I think, is a little bit concerning, but odds are at least next year he will be on a team if it's not the Raiders. So, yeah, I'd give it a B. In Superflex, I would love to have the advantage of having Josh Allen and Justin Fields, but from a dynasty standpoint, it's possible that the Bears move off of Justin Fields if he doesn't perform well. I mean, he's 5-20 in his career. He's barely won games. I mean, he lost 10 in a row last season. There's definitely some incentive to move off of him if he can't get it done this year. They're also both running quarterbacks, so there is higher injury risk with Fields. Allen should be fine, but yeah, I don't hate the trade. I think it's good if you really feel like worried about your depth on your roster, then especially getting Waddle, he's going to be really, really good. And it looks like you plan on trading Jacobs for more young wideouts. My wideouts are really bad. Yeah, I don't hate the trade. Getting that value is definitely worth it. Waddle could be a top 5 wide receiver if anything happened to Tyreek Hill. And even if it doesn't, he was top 12 last season. Waddle's very, very valuable. So you need help at receiver. I don't hate it. I would give it a B. Maybe from a running back standpoint, you could get a better option, someone that's a little bit more guaranteed to play, but I'm sure that factored into somebody being willing to move off of them and trade them away to you. So, yeah, pretty solid trade. I would have considered it myself if my team was really low on depth. That is for sure. But let's remind you of this team real quick. We had pick 1 overall where we went Justin Jefferson. We went with T. Higgins at pick 25, but we wanted a unique build, so we went with Breece Hall. We reached on him a little bit. I prefer Breece Hall over Stevenson, and Jonathan Taylor, I think, is in the same vein as well. So not opposed to doing that. Want something that's more unique. Then we went with Joe Burrow, Brandon Ayuk. We got the stack with T. Higgins and Joe Burrow. And then I mentioned how I believe Ayuk is probably just as valuable as Deebo Samuel going way later. But then we went with double running back, Cam Akers, Dameon Pierce. They both fell to us a few spots. Then we went with wide receivers, Cortland Sutton and Kadarius Toney, followed by Greg Dulcich, Geno Smith, Van Jefferson, MVS, Irv Smith, Ezekiel Elliott, Luke Musgrave, Chase Brown, and then we wrapped it up with Charlie Jones to complete our Joe Burrow stack. So that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And let's just take a quick look at our exposure on the Chihuahua. I've drafted 3 Chihuahuas so far. So we had Joe Burrow and Geno Smith on one roster. Then the team we just mentioned, Breece Hall, Cam Akers, Dameon Pierce, Zeke, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Cortland Sutton, Kadarius Toney, Van Jefferson, MVS, Charlie Jones, Dulcich, Irv Smith, and Musgrave. My other Chihuahua team is Jalen Hurts, who fell to me at pick 30. I was very happy with that. Then I got Matthew Stafford, Mac Jones, because I didn't want a bagel in week 10 at quarterback. I was kind of pissed that lined up. Probably a wasted pick, but it was round 18, whatever. Then I went with Najee Harris, Kenneth Walker, Javonte, James Conner, Tyjae Spears. And then we went heavy on the Rams stack. We went Cooper Kupp, Chris Olave, Gabe Davis, Alan Lazard, Jacoby Myers, Marvin Mims, Richie James, and Puka Nacua. Tight ends, Pat Freiermuth, Tyler Higbee. But my other team is Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, Saquon Barkley, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, Elijah Mitchell, Leonard Fournette, A.J. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, JSN, Odell Beckham, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton. So pretty heavy Daniel Jones stack on that one, including Darren Waller and Greg Dulcich. Let me know which team you think is your favorite. I kind of like the team we drafted today, but I think this Lamar, Daniel Jones, Bryce Young team is also really, really interesting. But that's going to be it for me in this video. Hope you enjoyed. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. So have a good one. Enjoy your weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.